This Burmese python wants to know what is inside the diary of a CEO.
Oh my God.
Beautiful. Now, what are you feeling right now?
Wondering why I do this for a living.
Have you ever done a podcast with a 10-foot snake across the table before?
No, this is my first.
Awesome. And then we'll bring out the next friend.
So don't bring it over here.
Just don't move.
Paul, what have you spent the last 20 years of your life doing?
Living out of a backpack in the Amazon rainforest, barefoot with a machete to help the indigenous people save the Amazon. Whatever it takes, which means crocodile bites, snake bites, very rare diseases hunted by the narco traffickers, like the picture of that guy. That scar is because he was shot in the head by a 7-foot arrow while he was trying to make peaceful contact with the uncontacted tribes. And this is actually a very important story.
I think I have a video of this.
Yeah, this is world first footage. So tribe isolated so deep in the jungle that they've never heard of a spoon or the wheel or Jesus was coming out to make contact. So we had to do a 2-day boat journey in one night through the worst thunderstorm I've ever seen. They were scared, we were scared, because these tribes kill people all the time. And they had one question. How do we tell the bad guys from the good guys? You see, these people are being hunted by traffickers and gold miners and loggers and boxed in by deforestation. But if our oceans and rainforests are vanishing, life on Earth is not possible. Now, it's not too late, but we're the last generation that can save it.
Paul, young kids are growing up attached to screens and loneliness is at an all-time high. Is there anything that you learned in those 15 years that a Westerner like me would find useful?
100%. So let's start with purpose.
이 남자 20년 동안 아마존 정글에서 맨발로 살았습니다. 악어에 물리고 마약 밀수꾼에 쫓기고 희귀 질병까지 걸렸지만 멈추지 않았습니다.
I was smart enough that they had me both suspended and in detention and in American Mensa. I was really all over the place. And the thing is, they make you feel stupid when you can't do the assignments. So I'd say, why are you failing math? And why can't you read this book? And you didn't do your homework. But I was like, I know I'm smart. And in the forest, I was good at tracking and I could survive and I could make it through a weekend and I could build shelter. And so I always just gravitated towards that. And so I spoke to my parents. I dropped out of high school. You can take your GED and get out 2 years early with a 1-day test. And I did that. The rule was I did have to go to university. So I had to start taking semesters. But in between semesters, I was free to go to the Amazon rainforest. And so I booked the most remote position that I could at a place where it took 2 days by boat from the nearest city to get to this tiny little research station. And it was run by this Peruvian guy and his partner, and his name was JJ. And that's the guy that opened the Amazon for me.
He opened the Amazon for you?
Well, JJ grew up in the Amazon as an indigenous person. So what he was learning, the first chapter in this book is called The Rarest of Species, because he's the only unicorn in the Amazon rainforest. He's an indigenous person, so he's been learning from his grandfathers all the way back.
And indigenous means?
Indigenous means his family is from the jungle. Their heritage, their lineage going back, they are jungle people. They're from the Eseja tribe. And so his father, Don Santiago there, they knew the medicinal plants. They knew how to fish for piranha. Then he can cut a piece of callus off of his foot and put it on a hook, using himself as bait to catch a bait fish. He can mash up a barbasco root and put it in a stream, and then all the fish float to the surface.
멘사 회원이지만 낙제생. 고등학교를 중퇴하고 18살에 아마존으로 떠났습니다. 그곳에서 그는 처음으로 자신의 자리를 찾았습니다.
We're all incinerated. And I said to JJ, I said, how do we... This can't be allowed. This can't possibly be something that's permitted. And I said, isn't there somebody that we can call? And we were standing on the side of the river, and he leaned forward, he looked this way, and he looked that way, and he goes, do you see anybody? He goes, because I don't see anybody. He goes, you have to do something. I said, I have to do something. I said, I'm 19, 20 years old. So what am I going to do? I said, I don't have a PhD. I don't have a trust fund. I don't have a media presence. I don't have anything. I had a machete and I had bare feet. We both had machetes and bare feet. And so that was the start of the journey where we said,
그가 살아나던 숲이 불탔습니다. 그리고 그 순간 19살 폴의 미션이 시작됐습니다. 마체테 하나와 맨발로.
This particular river had been protected by the violent, mysterious, Mashkopiro, nomadic, uncontacted tribes. And that had kept it wild. They were the original jungle keepers. But by the time I got there, they were sort of just a myth. And so they were something that they said they lived really far upriver, past the last indigenous community. And when I say indigenous community, I mean people that we can talk to, people that we can interface with, that I can speak a little Spanish to, and they'll understand me.
I think that's an important distinction.
Yes.
Because can you make that distinction between indigenous and these tribes?
Yes. So within Peru, you have Lima and Michelin star restaurants and all this amazing food. And then you travel down to Cusco where you have Machu Picchu and you have the Andes and all of that incredible culture. And then you go down to the jungle. And that's a little bit like going to the back end of Alaska. It's where it's like you are very far away from LA or New York, but it's the same country. And out there, you'll reach these communities where they are indigenous. And so in the reserve that we currently protect as jungle keepers, there's 2 indigenous communities there. And we work with them to sort of support them. Because as these loggers and narco traffickers and gold miners come in, they see them as a mark. They'll go in and say, oh, there's these helpless indigenous people. How can we exploit them? How can we get their trees, their fish? They'll go and take those things from them, or they'll sell them something that's not worth what they think it is. And so we've been working with these indigenous communities to say, do you want the loggers to come in and cut down all of your trees? And they go, no. And they go, but at the same time, we need a little bit of gasoline, because what if we're having a baby and we have to get our daughter to a hospital in town? And so we've been working with them to provide sustainable jobs as rangers, protecting their own land. It's such a simple solution, whereas otherwise they would go and be loggers to get that cash. And so we were working with these communities, and now they're rangers and boat drivers and guides and handymen. And they called us about a year ago and they said, something incredible is happening and it's going to be dangerous, but you are the directors and you're part of this family and you're part of this story and we need you here for this. But the tribes are about to come out of the forest.
수백 년을 숨어 살던 미접촉 부족이 드디어 나타나려 합니다. 그리고 폴은 그 역사적인 순간에 증인이 됩니다.
I had an anaconda handcuffs now. I couldn't release the snake if I wanted to because it was around my wrists. And then the second coil came around my shoulders. And now I'm feeling that I can actually hear my collarbone start to flex the way a stick sounds right before it snaps. And JJ grabbed the snake by the tail and pulled the tail off. And then his other brother, they got to me right as I was about to, literally the eyes were going to come out of my head. It was going to crush you. That's what happens. And so he pulled that right off at the last second. So that was about as close as I came.
And the question left for you is, if you only had 3 years left to live, what would you regret not doing? And are you working on that now? If no, why not?
If I had 3 years left to live, I would very much regret not finishing the mission that I started. And so whether we like it or not, we're either going to win and save it or we're going to lose. 3 years would be like just barely able to see it. I would regret so much coming so far and then not coming to fruition, because you mentioned before the idea of a wave, and it's like so much has happened and we have come to this place where so much is possible, but we're still in the barrel and we're not done yet. So if I had 3 years left to go, I know that all those heartbeats are depending on me.